Welcome to OneVerse. Today we have Todd Hosteller and Jeff Milslegel from City on a Hill Teaching Center, and they're here to discuss a Bible verse at random. I'm going to ask Todd to go first. It's an Old Testament verse. So Todd, it is Numbers 18:15. And that says, "Everything that first opens the womb of all flesh, which they bring to the Lord, whether man or beast, shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man you shall surely redeem, and the firstborn of unclean animals you shall redeem." That's Numbers 18:15.
And this is, of course, talking about those offerings that are made. We know that here in these early books of the Bible, a lot of time is spent in Deuteronomy and Leviticus and Numbers in just laying down some of the laws and the way things were supposed to be done. And that's what's being spoken of here. But it is really, there's some key points here that we do want to look at. I'm going to read it to you again. This is in the New King James Bible. This is Numbers 18, verse number 15. "Everything that first opens up the womb of all flesh, which they bring to the Lord, whether man or beast, shall be yours." So this was the standard all throughout the Old Testament and all throughout the Old Covenant time period. So anything that opened up the womb. So if you had a sheep, whatever the first that came out, if you had a sheep that her first little, what would it be, a ewe? The first ewe that is delivered, that belongs to the Lord. That is a sacrifice and given to the Lord. The concept is you give the first and you give the best always to God. That's the concept. Now that's true for animals, but it's also true and was true in the Old Covenant. It was true for humans as well. And so the first son would always be dedicated to the Lord. The life was given to the Lord. We see why this was important with Samuel. There's a lot of different examples about this. But this is important because this is exactly what Jesus is. If you read this verse, the way it says it, whether man or beast shall be yours. Nevertheless, the firstborn of man you shall surely redeem, and the firstborn of unclean animals you shall redeem. So Jesus Christ was the firstborn of the resurrection. He was the firstborn, and so he was the one, and he did come, and he did. He came to bring redemption to us. So the firstborn was always offered to God, and here we are seeing that this is a foreshadow of Jesus Christ, because when he comes, he's going to be the firstborn of the resurrection. He is God made flesh for the purpose of dying and then being the first to come from death to life, so that all of us who would believe and follow would also walk in the grace and the mercy of his salvation. So it's just a beautiful picture. So many things in the Old Testament do point us right back to the truths of the New Testament. We also know from the Old Testament that part of the law was the firstborn got a double portion blessing. The firstborn always got the double portion. Well, we know with Jesus Christ, we are, in the New Testament, we learn that we are, through Jesus Christ, the church of the firstborn. So as the firstborn in the Old Covenant got all of the blessings, they got the best, a double portion blessing. We who are the firstborn of Jesus Christ, we don't get the double portion blessing, we get everything that Jesus has won. It is Numbers chapter 18, verse number 16 or 15 or 16, but it's just a beautiful picture of what was and how Jesus was showing what would come in him. Jeff, what do you have for us in Numbers?
Yes, so you are right there. There's this sort of has so much to do with offerings and sacrifice, but I think it's trying to, I think the Lord through Moses is trying to instill to the people a couple different things. One is that it's a prophecy in advance of Jesus being the firstborn, a preeminent one or most important one. But I also think it's trying to reinstill to people how just precious life is. Because you mentioned it's the firstborn of man, and unclean animals you would redeem. If you drop down to just like verse 17, it talks about the firstborn of the cow, firstborn of the sheep, firstborn of the goat. You shall not redeem. They're holy. Why? Because they were actually used as an offering. So you have this contrast where you have the unclean animals. They were still devoted to the Lord here, or redeemed. In other words, you were able to use them, etc. But they were dedicated to him, and of course, people were in that too. But the unclean animals were actually given over to the Lord. So and of course, the clean animals given over to the Lord. So that's a bit, because the clean animals are the ones that they're going to use, right? The cows and sheep and the goats. I mean, they obviously would use those to sustain life for themselves. But here you're taking the very firstborn of all of those, and you're actually sacrificing those to the Lord. It is a point of getting the people to learn to trust him, even when the situation doesn't seem like that makes sense, because that makes absolutely no sense that you would take the first one and go ahead and actually finally, after the cow has been, a new calf's been born, you're going to go ahead and sacrifice it to the Lord. But it's the idea of putting the Lord first in everything. It was and it's kind of hard for us to understand this because we don't live in these times and haven't had the experiences like this. And thank goodness about that, because we have the one time here, the Jesus' blood has paid for all sacrifices. We'll have to go through this. But the idea of trying to reinforce to the people how bad sin is and how much there really had to be a price that's paid for it. But ultimately how we're all to be dedicated to him and to serve him. So yeah, this makes this big point here about the firstborn and the unusual or special designation here that they're to be deemed before the Lord. And anyhow, it's such an important point of understanding the point of sacrifice and a complete submission to him and trusting in the Lord. All right, there, go ahead, Todd, what you got there, and wrap up Numbers chapter 18, it's verse 15 for us.
Yeah, this is actually in the book of Exodus is what this is quoting. You go back to Exodus chapter 13. I'm going to read one verse to you. But every firstborn of a donkey, you shall redeem with the lamb. So we have the firstborn always given, except for the firstborn of a donkey. The firstborn of the donkey is redeemed by a lamb. Now, in less than a minute, I can't explain this to you, but I did a study on this about a year ago. And the imagery of donkeys, it always comes back to you and I. You and I are the image of a donkey. There's a lot of ways that really is proved out. One of them is we are the ones who would take the gospel of Jesus Christ. It was the donkey that Jesus was riding on as he came to the triumphal entry. So it's just a cool image. If you know and understand that as a donkey, you and I, the donkey is the only one of all these animals that is not given. It's redeemed. What is it redeemed by? It's redeemed by the Lamb. Jesus Christ is the Lamb. Everything in the Word just paints a beautiful picture for us to understand who we are in Jesus Christ. Hey, thanks for sharing the time with us. We look forward to joining you next time on OneVerse.